So we are grateful for your presence this morning. We're also deeply grateful to have our reflection leader for today, Darby Voeks. I'll tell you a little bit more about Darby. But first, I simply want to say that healing our world is volunteer, it's grassroots. This is not a space for proselytizing. This is a space where everyone and anyone is welcome as a person of goodwill, discovering the power of humanity and discovering the power of spirit. However you name the creative power of the universe, however you name God, remember that God is love. And so this is indeed a space of love. We hope that you feel our love for the community. And we can tell you that in conversations, we know that Annunciation feels our love. Good morning, Golden Valley. And so thank you. Again, the prayer space will continue until the 15th of September, enfolding especially the families of Fletcher Merkel and the families of Harper Moisky as they grieve the loss of those two beautiful lives. It also continues to wrap in prayer Sophia Forches because Sophia is still in critical condition. And it wraps in prayer the leaders of the Annunciation community. And particularly today, think of our first responders. We depend on them a lot to be there, but at what cost to their own peace? At what cost to their own psyche, to their own spirit? And one more, those persons who are troubled, who are hurting in mind and spirit, need our compassion, need our love. This is that space. And so wherever your feet touch the ground, again, you are welcome. Darby Voeks is an exceptional individual. Just before we came on, we were in a very contemplative space, and Darby brought the most beautiful, infectious, uplifting energy to our pre-gathering. And we were already grateful. We couldn't wait to hear what he had to say to us. And so let me tell you that Darby knows the Annunciation community intimately because he attended Annunciation school and graduated from there. He's the youth director for Crosstown Young Life. And in that role, he works very closely with the current Annunciation Youth Ministry, helping them to find staff and resources so that the young people who attend school and who are there at the parish can be supported and nurtured. We are deeply grateful for his presence, even as he is so close still to this fresh pain. So Darby, welcome to this space. We are grateful for your presence.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. My first prayer for all of us is that we can think back to when we were little. Part of why these tragedies are so heartbreaking is because they involve children and they remind us of the innocence and the joy and the childlike faith that many of us must have held when we were little before the world ever made us calloused, or before the world ever left us traumatized, or before the world ever taught us about heartbreak. We see these little innocent lives being taken. So, my first challenge for us would be to learn from our children. in three ways. One way is this. Since this incident has happened, I have been observing our students. I have been seeing how they grieve. I've been seeing how they process, and I have been overwhelmed with the health to which they experience this situation. Vivek Murthy, our US Surgeon General, even before COVID, declared loneliness a national epidemic. The root of so much of the different health issues in the United States, the US Surgeon General said was the source was loneliness. Now, what I have seen is our students every single day since this has happened, they have been running to one another. They have been looking for each other and they've been deciding to be together. May we do the same thing. Be together, run towards each other in the midst of heartache and pain. Who are the people that are there that can support you in your life? The second thing is confronting the pain. It was almost shocking to me to go and be present at the site where this mass murder and tragedy happened. And I couldn't believe how students wanted to go into the church where they had just been the day before. They wanted to see the pews, they wanted to look at the stained glass windows, and they were doing so in a way that wasn't about fixation or fascination, but it was about confrontation, saying, hey, this is where it happened. This is the window that this gentleman walked to. This is where I was sitting. And they were willing to go with their loved ones to say, hey, this is what had happened, putting their holes in the place where pain was caused, literally. I think as adults, we may forget what it looks like to confront the pain. And we do things to numb it and distract from it, but we don't have the boldness to lean towards it and process it, whether that is through therapy or grief groups or prayer, but processing the pain we all internally feel. And thirdly, and most importantly, I think we need to learn from our students in the way that they have embraced the other. For my folks from Minnesota or Detroit, I apologize for what I'm wearing underneath this, but I was a um, struck at the funeral of Fletcher Merkel, our boy who was killed. And at his funeral, the pastor of Mount Olivet Church told a story of how Fletcher became a Packers fan. Fletcher was at a football game when he was 4 years old in Minnesota with his family, who were all Vikings fans. And as they're walking into US Bank, Fletcher was struck by how poorly the Minnesota fans were treating the Green Bay fans. Now, if this were in Lambeau Field, I'm not sure the story would have been any different. But this happened to be in Minnesota, and he was struck by how poorly the Minnesota fans weren't getting along with the fans from Green Bay. And he looked up at his father and he said, Dad, this isn't right. This isn't how adults are supposed to treat each other. And in that moment, Fletcher pledged to be a Packers fan. He pledged himself to the green and gold for the rest of his life because he wanted to stand with the other. In his small 4-year-old way, when confronted with how humans will place someone as the other, Fletcher chose to stand with the other. May we do the same thing. I believe if our world does that more intentionally and more seriously and more courageously, then this tragedy, we may not be on these Zoom calls in 10 years. If our students today are embraced even when they feel like they're the other, we may have in fact accomplished the mission of this Zoom call. So what does that look like for us? I would say it looks like being together with people who love and support us, confronting the pain that has hurt us, and embracing the other, even when it costs something, even when people may look at you saying, "Why are you doing that? Why are you wearing that? We all root for this team. We all do things this way." Can we courageously align ourselves with the other? Because as we heard yesterday in our reflection, if they step over us to get over and after the innocent, cursed be our religion and our life. Are we willing to speak up so that the innocents and the others can be embraced? Amen.
As those words sink into our spirit this morning and sink into our reality, how important is it that all of us, all of you, have decided to be together? In a moment, I'll invite us to be together in silence. If you are new to the contemplative practice of silence, what we find in the 7 minutes of silence is an opportunity to hear what is at our core, to examine our place and our role in community. And to borrow Darby's words, we find room in the silence to confront the pain, not as an act of fascination, but as an act of bravery, individual and communal bravery. And so you are invited now to 7 minutes of silence. As you find your way back into this moment, what did you discover in the silence? Did you discover the child that is you, the child at the heart of God's love? Were you able to see your own beauty? Were you able to remember the simple faith, the simple joy that guides your steps in the world? Or perhaps you were able to find some hidden place of pain and offer healing to it or receive healing for it. You're invited, if you care to place that in the chat. Your thoughts, your prayers, the things that are on your heart are all an important part of this moment, this movement of compassion and goodwill, this opportunity. This is not an act of spiritual ambulance chasing, my friends. This is embracing the strength that comes from being together, that comes from choosing to, as Darby just said to us, choosing to run toward each other. Thank you for taking advantage of it. Thank you for sharing in it. Thank you for sharing it with others. And as we go out into the world today, I hope that our time together has given you a bit more strength, a bit more resilience, a bit more capacity to love, even as we are loved. And I hope you experienced something that will bring you back tomorrow as we go one more step further in our journey of creating compassion, of creating healing for our world.